I was just about to make my exit, but not before I detonated the entire corporate structure from the inside. The air in the Grand Hyatt ballroom was thick with the scent of expensive catered food and success, the kind of place Apex Logistics reserved annually to celebrate its own perceived brilliance. My briefcase was tucked under my arm, containing a bound report representing 8 months of intensive labor, predictive metrics, operational flowcharts, and the precise code that digitized and streamlined every mile of Apex's supply chain. I headed toward the main entrance, instantly locating my department clustered around a large table near the stage. The sound of applause, the loud clinking of celebratory flutes, and bursts of laughter filled the space. Just as I reached the velvet rope barrier, Clara, a senior administrator, stepped directly into my path. "Ethan," she said, her voice smooth but patronizing, "we are at full capacity tonight. You'll have to wait in the foyer." Her gaze slid right past me, as if I were a piece of misplaced furniture. I frowned, genuinely confused. "Wait? But my team is right there." She didn't budge. "My apologies. Only guests with reserved seating are permitted inside. Mr. Thorne's specific instructions." Behind her, I saw Brandon, the intern who had been with Apex for barely 4 weeks since graduating from a top-tier university, sharing a hearty laugh with Mr. Thorne. Brandon had my entire operational blueprint displayed prominently on the table near the podium. My blueprint, the system I had painstakingly developed over countless nights and lost weekends, staring at screens until my vision blurred. I spotted a polished chrome trophy on the central podium. Excellence in Supply Chain Innovation, Brandon Miller. My breath caught in my chest. I wasn't surprised, not truly. My department head, Mr. Thorne, had been systematically lifting sections of my projects and claiming them as his own for years. But this, giving the highest honor to a kid who still asked me how to use the enterprise data warehouse, this was a new level of insult. I tightened my grip on the briefcase. "Are you seriously telling me I am not allowed to sit with the people I manage?" Clara gave me a smile that held no warmth, thin and sharp like broken glass. "Company protocol, Ethan. I'm sure Mr. Thorne will debrief you on the situation later." I scanned the room again. There were several empty chairs, but none for the man who had actually built the infrastructure they were raising a toast to. I looked at Brandon, who was now grinning directly at me, a look of smug knowledge on his face, a clear acknowledgement of what he was usurping. My hand was shaking, but I maintained my silence. I simply turned and retreated into the quiet, adjacent hallway. I placed my briefcase on a small marble table, flipped open my laptop, and connected to the hotel's public network. My cursor hung over the send button in my email client. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my mind was laser-focused. One click, and every director, senior VP, and board member across the company would receive the files, the original timestamp code, the version history, and the irrefutable evidence proving that the celebrated innovation belonged solely to me. I hit send. Within a few seconds, I heard it. A collective chorus of buzzing phones erupting inside the ballroom. The polite, celebratory chatter instantly flatlined, as if a mute button had been pressed on the entire event. Had I simply walked away, then the chaos might have been containable. But I stayed, and that was the moment the real storm began. I had joined Apex Logistics fresh out of business school, armed with dual degrees in supply chain and systems engineering. I was 28, naive, and still believed that competence was always the highest currency. In my first year, I was a wrecking ball of efficiency. I reduced warehousing shrinkage by a quarter and fundamentally rewrote the legacy route optimization algorithm, eliminating several hours from every long-haul delivery schedule. I even uncovered and fixed a critical software vulnerability deep within the infrastructure that could have cost us the largest government contract. When I presented the fix to Mr. Thorne, he barely glanced up from his desk. "Solid effort, Ethan," he mumbled, tossing a casual approval over his shoulder. "Keep up the pace." That was the extent of my reward. No bonus, no title change, no official recognition. Just another urgent stack of reports dropped onto my workstation. The defining characteristic of men like Mr. Thorne is not that they despise hard work, but that they believe the credit for that labor belongs only to them. 6 months later, I developed a sophisticated predictive analytics model for maritime and rail delays, a system that used real-time satellite and meteorological data to forecast bottlenecks weeks in advance. It was groundbreaking. The day I presented it to the internal team, Mr. Thorne leaned back, stroking his chin. "Intriguing idea," he noted. "I'll review it." 2 weeks later, he showcased the exact same model at a quarterly executive summit. His name was plastered across every slide. He hadn't even bothered to alter the PowerPoint template colors. When I confronted him later, he feigned ignorance. "Look, Ethan, you're proficient with code. I conceptualized a need. You simply materialized it." "No, I created it," I asserted, my voice tight with barely contained frustration. Mr. Thorne shrugged, displaying the arrogance of someone untouchable. "Company resources, company hours. Intellectual property is ours. If you want to send the ladder, don't cause disruption." That evening, I couldn't sleep. I documented the entire incident and presented it to Liliana in HR the next morning, ready for a conflict. She was unfazed. "Ethan, if this model was developed while clocked in and on an Apex computer, it is company property. Individual ownership rights are secondary." I stared at her. "So, Mr. Thorne can just steal it?" She interrupted me, her tone deceptively gentle. "Your best route for recognition is to ensure your supervisor documents your contributions." My supervisor, the man who had just stolen my work. I left her office, my hands clenched into fists of white rage. I should have resigned right then. Instead, I convinced myself that the next project would be different. I was profoundly wrong. What I didn't know was that I was still in the introductory phase of my exploitation. 6 months before the fateful banquet, I poured myself into a comprehensive logistics overhaul that could have set a new industry standard. It was a masterpiece of efficiency, my final attempt to prove my worth. It cost me every free moment. Nights of cold meals, weekends lost to data modeling. It was my magnum opus. When the quarterly strategy meeting arrived, I was prepared. I personally printed the final document, presenting flawless diagrams and mathematically sound projections. I was midway through setting up the projector when Mr. Thorne breezed in, slapped me on the back, and snatched the folder. "Let's see it," he commanded. He skimmed the dozens of pages for barely 20 seconds before the meeting began. "We're pressed for time," he announced to the room. "I'll summarize." I sat in stunned silence as he mangled months of work in less than 2 minutes. He completely skipped the dynamic risk mitigation engine and the automated fleet assignment features. The heart of the innovation needs further internal review, he concluded, dismissing the folder as junk. His move was always the same. Publicly diminish your work, then quietly take the credit when the spotlight was off. 3 weeks later, I was in the back of a small conference room when Brandon, the intern who still needed assistance printing documents, stood up to present his innovative new framework. I froze. It was my system, verbatim. Every diagram, every underlying function, the entire logical structure, sanitized and packaged with hollow corporate jargon. Mr. Thorne sat beaming at the front. "Outstanding initiative, Brandon," he praised. "This is the kind of forward thinking we desperately need." Everyone clapped. I felt like I was watching my professional obituary. I cornered Mr. Thorne immediately after. "What in God's name was that?" I demanded. He didn't even flinch. "Easy, Ethan. We're one team." Brandon simply added a fresh perspective. "We call it collaboration." He smirked, playing a game I was tired of losing. That night, I stayed up until 3 a.m., but not out of despair. Something had snapped. They were no longer just stealing my work. They were replacing me. Brandon, the nephew of a board member, had been fast-tracked. Within a month, he was hired full-time, and the company announced a multi-million-dollar investment into his project. My project. I sat through the next Monday briefing, my face impassive, but my mind was an inferno. I wouldn't complain to HR again. I would execute a scorched earth policy. If they wanted to pretend my labor didn't matter, they were about to find out exactly how much of their infrastructure I represented. The next 6 months were dedicated to building the ultimate contingency. I started on my personal laptop, Late at night with the blinds drawn, I rebuilt my entire framework, a new, superior version. No company IP, no Apex server assets, nothing they could remotely claim ownership of. Every line of code, every simulation, every improvement that Mr. Thorne's corner cutting had prevented me from implementing before was now perfect. Once the framework was complete, the evidence collection began. I retrieved old communications, saved every timestamp that delineated my original development period, and cross-referenced version histories to prove the plagiarism. I backed up everything to an encrypted off-site drive. But I knew just leaving with my IP wasn't enough. Apex had a history of discarding talent. I started reaching out to others. Simon from engineering had been with the company for 9 years. His last major code overhaul had cut processing errors by half, only for Mr. Thorne to present it as a weekend idea. Simon received a gift card. We met for coffee near the rail yard. I laid out my vision carefully. What if we build a platform for ourselves? I asked, a system that can't be corrupted by internal politics? Simon, looking weary, was intrigued. Are you talking about leaving? He asked. I'm talking about launching something better. 2 days later, he texted, I'm in. Next came Marco from sales. Marco was a charisma machine, a natural closer who had once secured a 5-year contract with a major distribution firm, only for Mr. Thorne to physically take the pen for the signing photo. When I told him my plan, he didn't hesitate. About time, he growled. They've been operating a theft ring for years. We added Jessica from analytics, a quiet genius who was consistently excluded from executive sessions. Then Nicole from customer success, who single-handedly salvaged our relationship with our biggest client. None of them had received anything more than a token commendation. Our war room was a mix of encrypted video calls, private Google Docs, and late-night sessions in my garage. We didn't just plot vengeance. We brainstormed genuine solutions, what the industry truly needed, and what Apex was too bloated and corrupt to see. Our combined institutional knowledge was a tactical weapon. We knew every single point of friction and inefficiency that Mr. Thorne and his associates conveniently ignored. Within a month, we had a blueprint. Simon fortified the software. Jessica built advanced, proprietary data models. Marco lined up prospective clients. We were building something unstoppable. They stole my seat, so I prepared to take their entire table. 3 months before the banquet, I met with Victoria Hayes, a respected venture capitalist known for backing disruptive logistics startups. I was completely calm. I presented my pitch deck, ran live simulations of my newly refined framework, and showcased a small army of disillusioned experts from Apex who were ready to defect. Victoria didn't care about my resume. Show me the results, she demanded. I walked her through the platform. Real-time routing, predictive failure analysis, and autonomous system redundancies. All the features Apex had dismissed while chasing internal politics. When I finished, she didn't need to be persuaded. I'm backing this, she said. This is the kind of IP that gets acquired for 9 figures. You got the right people. I flipped to the final slide. Simon, Marco, Jessica, and Nicole, a cohort of experts with years of experience and deep scars from Apex's mismanagement. We're ready to launch the second we're funded. Her smile widened. You have my support. File the patents. I'll handle the rest. By the end of the week, the patents were filed under my name and the company name, Veritoss Solutions, LLC. We leased space in a half-finished building 2 blocks from the train yard. It was rough, peeling paint and cheap second-hand desks, but was ours. We spent the next several weeks in a frenzy of strategy and recruitment, quietly pulling in more talent from engineering and data who were fed up with the corporate culture. The war room was officially a company in waiting. The final piece fell into place when Marco leveraged his contacts and secured 6 major clients, all fed up with Apex's continuous screw-ups and empty promises. We signed them under strict NDAs, lining up pilot runs of our platform. The metrics spoke for themselves. Faster delivery, significant cost reduction, fewer system failures. Every client gave the same feedback. When you're ready to flip the switch, we're ready to move. It felt like watching a slow-burning fuse. I had spent years being ignored, but now everything was perfectly aligned. By the time the annual banquet arrived, Veritoss Solutions was fully capitalized, legally protected, and armed with committed clients. I had a detailed press release queued up, detailing our launch and exposing the outdated methodologies Apex Logistics used. And I had prepared a stack of resignations, not just mine, but those of the 7 core individuals who literally kept Apex operational. Simon called it the surgical extraction. We weren't just leaving. We were walking out with their best minds, their best IP, and their future revenue. The banquet was the final scene of the play. As Clara stood at the door declaring there was no room, I nearly laughed out loud. They had excluded me from their trivial celebration. In exchange, I had built a company they would never be able to buy back. My laptop didn't just hold evidence. It held the queued press release, the patent notices, and every signed agreement from clients ready to transition. I wasn't walking away from Apex. I was taking its viability with me. They attempted to broker a deal, but it was too late. The second I stepped out of the ballroom, my phone became frantic. A storm of emails, calls, and text messages. The first wave was sheer confusion. What is this file? Ethan, what does this mean? Then came the unmistakable sound of panic. I could visualize Mr. Thorne's self-satisfied expression turning to ash as he opened the attachments. Undeniable proof that every metric, every code enhancement, every innovation Brandon had just been lauded for was my original work. The synchronized resignation emails from Simon, Marco, Jessica, and the others landed like depth charges. It wasn't one person quitting. It was the entire operational foundation of Apex vanishing in unison. By the time I reached the parking structure, I had dozens of missed calls. Clara's message blinked on the screen. Whatever they offered, we'll triple it. Just come back. We need you. Please. The elevator doors opened, and there stood Mrs. Sterling, the VP of Operations, sprinting toward me, looking like he'd just witnessed an accident. His suit was disheveled, sweat beaded on his forehead. Ethan, stop, he gasped, blocking my car. We have to talk. I stood still, perfectly composed. An hour ago, I wasn't even worth a chair, I stated. He flinched but pushed on. Listen, I don't know what Dominic did, but we can rectify this. HR will investigate. Rectify this? I cut him off, stepping closer. You mean the years of intellectual theft, the promotions handed to his family connections, the way he paraded Brandon around as a prodigy while using my labor as his personal stepping stone? Mr. Sterling swallowed hard. I can fix this. We'll offer you a management role. It is far too late for that. I interrupted. His phone buzzed, and I glimpsed the screen, multiple panic messages from the CEO. The company was completely unaware of Veritoss Solutions, or that 5 major clients were already poised to sever their contracts. You don't grasp the gravity, Mr. Sterling. I said quietly, I'm finished with your games. I built something superior. While you are busy scrambling to find a scapegoat, I'll be busy launching the future you deliberately threw away. I walked past him toward my car. He didn't pursue me. By the time I exited the garage, my phone was still alight. A final email from HR read, We require an urgent discussion regarding your activities tonight. The corporate formality made the action sound like a minor policy violation, not the systemic dismantling of their core operating division. I didn't reply. When I arrived at the Veritoss Solutions office that morning, I felt a surge of pride. The place was a dump. Bare cinder block walls, a notoriously slow elevator, and a coffee machine that sounded like a dying beast. But when I walked in, I felt energized. Simon was hunched over a workstation, sleeves rolled up, fine-tuning the deployment. Marco was on a call with a potential new client, grinning. Jessica was setting up onboarding documentation. These were not mere colleagues. They were co-founders. I set my laptop down and opened our custom dashboard. Our system was live with pilot clients, and the early performance metrics were already eclipsing every promise Apex had ever made. Morning, Chief. Marco called. Hanging up. Client number 7 is locked. They want to switch over next quarter. I couldn't help but smile. Excellent. Keep this up, and they'll be begging to leave Apex completely. At 10 a.m., our press release hit the wire. Veritoss Solutions, New logistics tech firm launched by former Apex innovators pledges transparency and efficiency. Within 2 hours, Apex Logistics stock had plummeted 11%. Mr. Thorne would be scrambling to manage the narrative. The calls poured in, journalists, former co-workers, and managers from Apex suddenly feigning long-standing belief in my abilities. Simon looked up from his monitor. Stock price down another 2 points in the last hour, he noted, smirking. Guess we found a pressure point. It wasn't the stock drop that felt good, but the proof it represented. That true talent, when respected, could overthrow an empire built on exploitation. By day's end, our inbox was flooded with resumes. Engineers, analysts, sales reps, all from Apex. All people who had been marginalized and were now looking for a place where their effort actually mattered. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about forging the kind of company I had always wanted to work for, a place where ideas weren't stolen and recognition wasn't a weapon. We were building a future. The old guard tried to intimidate me, but the dynamic had shifted. It was late when my phone rang. The caller ID made me pause. Mr. Hemlock, the chairman of Apex's board. Ethan, he stated, his voice calm but sharp. We will sue you. You are in breach of contract. We own everything you developed. I leaned back, recording the call. Are you certain about that? Everything you think you own? I rebuilt on my own time, on my own hardware, using zero Apex assets. I filed the patents months ago. You may want to review your legal position before threatening me. The silence stretched. Patents don't matter. If they matter, I cut in. And so, do the contracts your company fail to honor. I have documented evidence of Apex missing KPIs and misrepresenting performance. Do your lawyers want that in open court? You don't understand the gravity of the situation, he finally said, his voice dropping. We can make this very ugly. I chuckled softly. Mr. Hemlock, this call is recorded. If you want to continue bluffing, go ahead. But the last person you underestimated is the reason your stock crashed yesterday. I hung up. 6 months later, Veritoss Solutions was thriving. Our office looked professional. The team was growing, and the coffee machine had been upgraded. That's when Mr. Sterling returned. I found him waiting in the lobby, looking worn out. Ethan, he said, defeated, I'm here with a proposal from the board. He slid a folder across the table. A staggering buyout offer for Veritoss, equity options, and the title of Chief Innovation Officer for Apex. We restructured, he explained. Mr. Thorne is gone. The CEO is finally listening. We want you back on your terms. I glanced to the glass wall at my team. Simon and Jessica mapping out a new AI routing system. Marco closing a major deal. Back then, I said, closing the folder, I asked for a seat at the table. You couldn't even offer me a folding chair. We made mistakes, big ones. But this is your chance to lead, he pleaded. I am leading right now. I replied, you think I built this just for money? Do you think I walked away just to crawl back when you finally noticed my value? No, Mr. Sterling. You had your opportunity. You destroyed it. He sagged. If you change your mind, but I was already walking away. Not interested, I said over my shoulder. 1 year later, I was center stage at the Dallas Logistics Tech Conference, the biggest event in the industry. A year ago, I was standing outside a locked banquet hall, watching my work celebrated by a thief. Now, as I walked onto the stage, I saw faces of former colleagues, including Brandon, sitting in the back row. I started my keynote with the exact phrase I was told that night. You can wait outside. The crowd shifted. That, I continued, is what I was told when I tried to bring new ideas to the table, when I worked late nights and was told to be quiet because I didn't fit the corporate mold. There was a pause, then applause. But here's the simple truth about being told to wait outside. Eventually, you build your own table. I spoke about Veritoss Solutions, our commitment to transparency, our efficiency metrics, and the power of truly valuing the people who do the hard work. I didn't mention Apex by name. I didn't have to. Everyone knew about their plummeting stock and the client exodus. The screen behind me lit up with our performance data, metrics that spoke louder than any insult. As I looked out at the audience, I saw Simon, Jessica, and Marco in the front row, their faces beaming. It wasn't just my victory, it was our triumph. When the keynote finished, the ovation was thunderous. I stepped back from the podium, taking a slow breath. For the first time in my career, I wasn't fighting for a seat.